Section 43 of the Works of Edgar Allan Poe, Raven Edition, Volume 5. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. Recording by Sean Daly. Letter to Mr. B. by Edgar Allan Poe. West Point, 1831. Dear B., believing only a portion of my former volume to be worthy a second edition, that small portion I thought it as well to include in the present book as to republish by itself. I have therefore herein combined Aaraaf and Tamerlane with other poems hitherto unprinted. Nor have I hesitated to insert from the minor poems, now omitted, whole lines and even passages, to the end that being placed in a fairer light and the trash shaken from them in which they are embedded, they may have some chance of being seen by posterity. It has been said that a good critique on a poem may be written by one who is no poet himself. This, according to your idea and mine of poetry, I feel to be false. The less poetical the critic, the less just the critique, and the converse. On this account, and because there are but few B's in the world, I would be as much ashamed of the world's good opinion as proud of your own. Another than yourself might here observe, Shakespeare is in possession of the world's good opinion, and yet Shakespeare is the greatest of poets. It appears then that the world judge correctly. Why should you be ashamed of their favorable judgment? The difficulty lies in the interpretation of the word judgment or opinion. The opinion is the world's, truly, but it may be called theirs as a man would call a book his, having bought it. He did not write the book, but it is his. They did not originate the opinion, but it is theirs. A fool, for example, thinks Shakespeare a great poet, yet the fool has never read Shakespeare. But the fool's neighbor, who is a step higher on the Andes of the mind, whose head, that is to say, his more exalted thought, is too far above the fool to be seen or understood, but whose feet, by which I mean his everyday actions, are sufficiently near to be discerned, and by means of which that superiority is ascertained, which but for them would never have been discovered. This neighbor asserts that Shakespeare is a great poet. The fool believes him, and it is henceforward his opinion. This neighbor's own opinion has, in like manner, been adopted from one above him, and so ascendingly to a few gifted individuals who kneel around the summit, beholding, face to face, the master spirit who stands upon the pinnacle. You are aware of the great barrier in the path of an American writer. He is read, if at all, in preference to the combined and established wit of the world. I say established, for it is with literature as with law or empire. An established name is an estate in tenure, or a throne in possession. Besides, one might suppose that books, like their authors, improve by travel. Their having crossed the sea is, with us, so great a distinction. Our antiquaries abandon time for distance. Our very fops glance from the binding to the bottom of the title page, where the mystic characters which spell London, Paris, or Genoa are precisely so many letters of recommendation. I mentioned just now a vulgar error as regards criticism. I think the notion that no poet can form a correct estimate of his own writings is another. I remarked before that in proportion to the poetical talent would be the justice of a critique upon poetry. Therefore a bad poet would, I grant, make a false critique, and his self-love would infallibly bias his little judgment in his favor. But a poet, who is indeed a poet, could not, I think, fail of making a just critique. Whatever should be deducted on the score of self-love might be replaced on account of his intimate acquaintance with the subject. In short, we have more instances of false criticism than of just where one's own writings are the test, simply because we have more bad poets than good. There are, of course, many objections to what I say. Milton is a great example of the contrary. But his opinion with respect to the Paradise Regained is by no means fairly ascertained. By what trivial circumstances men are often led to assert what they do not really believe. Perhaps an inadvertent word has descended to posterity. But, in fact, the Paradise Regained is little, if at all, inferior to the Paradise Lost, and is only supposed so to be because men do not like epics, whatever they may say to the contrary, and reading those of Milton in their natural order, are too much wearied with the first to derive any pleasure from the second. I dare say Milton preferred Comus to either. If so, justly. As I am speaking of poetry, it will not be amiss to touch slightly upon the most singular heresy in its modern history. The heresy of what is called, very foolishly, the Lake School. Some years ago I might have been induced, by an occasion like the present, to attempt a formal refutation of their doctrine. At present it would be a work of supererogation. The wise must bow to the wisdom of such men as Coleridge and Southey, but, being wise, have laughed at poetical theories so prosaically exemplified. Aristotle with singular assurance has declared poetry the most philosophical of all writings. But it required a Wordsworth to pronounce it the most metaphysical. He seems to think that the end of poetry is, or should be, instruction. Yet it is a truism that the end of our existence is happiness. If so, the end of every separate part of our existence, everything connected with our existence, should be still happiness. Therefore, the end of instruction should be happiness. And happiness is another name for pleasure. Therefore, the end of instruction should be pleasure. Yet we see the above-mentioned opinion implies precisely the reverse. To proceed, ceteris paribus, he who pleases is of more importance to his fellow men than he who instructs, since utility is happiness, and pleasure is the end already obtained, which instruction is merely the means of obtaining. I see no reason, then, why our metaphysical poets should plume themselves so much on the utility of their works, unless indeed they refer to instruction with eternity in view, in which case sincere respect for their piety would not allow me to express my contempt for their judgment, contempt which it would be difficult to conceal, since their writings are professedly to be understood by the few, and it is the many who stand in need of salvation. In such case I should no doubt be tempted to think of the devil in Melmoth, who labors indefatigably through 3 octavo volumes to accomplish the destruction of 1 or 2 souls, while any common devil would have demolished 1 or 2,000. Against the subtleties which would make poetry a study, not a passion, it becomes the metaphysician to reason, but the poet to protest. Yet Wordsworth and Coleridge are men in years, the one imbued in contemplation from his childhood, the other a giant in intellect and learning. The diffidence, then, with which I venture to dispute their authority would be overwhelming did I not feel, from the bottom of my heart, that learning has little to do with the imagination, intellect with the passions, or age with poetry. Trifles, like straws, upon the surface flow. He who would search for pearls must dive below, are lines which have not done much mischief. As regards the greater truths, men oftener err by seeking them at the bottom than at the top. Truth lies in the huge abysses where wisdom is sought, not in the palpable palaces where she is found. The ancients were not always right in hiding the goddess in a well. Witness the light which Bacon has thrown upon philosophy. Witness the principles of our divine faith, the moral mechanism by which the simplicity of a child may overbalance the wisdom of a man. We see an instance of Coleridge's liability to err in his Biographia Literaria, professedly his literary life and opinions, but in fact a treatise de omne scibile et quibudam aliis. He goes wrong by reason of his very profundity, and of his error we have a natural type in the contemplation of a star. He who regards it directly and intensely sees, it is true, the star, but it is the star without a ray, while he who surveys it less inquisitively is conscious of all for which the star is useful to us below, its brilliancy and its beauty. As to Wordsworth, I have no faith in him. That he had in youth the feelings of a poet I believe, for there are glimpses of extreme delicacy in his writings, and delicacy is the poet's own kingdom, his El Dorado. But they have the appearance of a better day recollected, and glimpses at best are little evidence of present poetic fire. We know that a few straggling flowers spring up daily in the crevices of the glacier. He was to blame in wearing away his youth in contemplation with the end of poetizing in his manhood. With the increase of his judgment, the light which should make it apparent has faded away. His judgment, consequently, is too correct. This may not be understood, but the old Goths of Germany would have understood it, who used to debate matters of importance to their state twice, once when drunk, and once when sober. Sober that they might not be deficient in formality, drunk lest they should be destitute of vigor. The long wordy discussions by which he tries to reason us into admiration of his poetry speak very little in his favor. They are full of such assertions as this. I have opened one of his volumes at random. Of genius the only proof is the act of doing well what is worthy to be done, and what was never done before. Indeed! Then it follows that in doing what is unworthy to be done, or what has been done before, no genius can be evinced. Yet the picking of pockets is an unworthy act. Pockets have been picked time immemorial, and Barrington, the pickpocket and point of genius, would have thought hard of a comparison with William Wordsworth, the poet. Again, in estimating the merit of certain poems, whether they be Ossian's or Macpherson's, can surely be of little consequence. Yet, in order to prove their worthlessness, Mr. W. has expended many pages in the controversy. Tantaine animis? Can great minds descend to such absurdity? But worse still, that he may bear down every argument in favor of these poems, he triumphantly drags forward a passage in his abomination with which he expects the reader to sympathize. It is the beginning of the epic poem Tamora. The blue waves of Olin roll in light. The green hills are covered with day. Trees shake their dusty heads in the breeze. And this is gorgeous, yet simple imagery, where all is alive and panting with immortality. This, William Wordsworth, the author of Peter Bell, has selected for his contempt. We shall see what better he, in his own person, has to offer, imprimis. And now she's at the pony's tail, and now she's at the pony's head, on that side now, and now on this, and almost stifled with her bliss. A few sad tears does Betty shed. She pats the pony, where or when, she knows not. Happy Betty Foy, oh Johnny, never mind the doctor. Secondly, the dew was falling fast. The stars began to blink. I heard a voice. It said, "Drink, pretty creature, drink." And looking o'er the hedge, before me I espied a snow-white mountain lamb with a maiden at its side. No other sheep was near. The lamb was all alone, and by a slender cord was tethered to a stone. Now, we have no doubt this is all true. We will believe it, indeed we will, Mr. W. Is it sympathy for the sheep you wish to excite? I love a sheep from the bottom of my heart. But there are occasions, dear B, there are occasions when even Wordsworth is reasonable. Even Stamboul, it is said, shall have an end, and the most unlucky blunders must come to a conclusion. Here is an extract from his preface. Those who have been accustomed to the phraseology of modem writers, if they persist in reading this book to a conclusion, impossible, will, no doubt, have to struggle with feelings of awkwardness. They will look round for poetry, and will be induced to inquire by what species of courtesy these attempts have been permitted to assume that title. Yet let not Mr. W. despair. He has given immortality to a wagon, and the bee Sophocles is transmitted to eternity a sore toe, and dignified a tragedy with a chorus of turkeys. Of Coleridge I cannot speak but with reverence. His towering intellect, his gigantic power. To use an author quoted by himself, "Te trouve souvent que la plupart des sectes ont raison dans une bonne partie de quelles avançant, mais non pas en quelles n'y entend." To employ his own language, he has imprisoned his own conceptions by the barrier he has erected against those of others. It is lamentable to think that such a mind should be buried in metaphysics, and like the Nicontis, waste its perfume upon the night alone. In reading that man's poetry, I tremble like one who stands upon a volcano, conscious from the very darkness bursting from the crater of the fire and the light that are weltering below. What is poetry? Poetry! That Proteus-like idea, with as many appellations as the 9-titled Corcyra. Give me, I demanded of a scholar some time ago, give me a definition of poetry. Très volontiers. And he proceeded to his library, brought me a Dr. Johnson, and overwhelmed me with a definition. Shade of the immortal Shakespeare, I imagine to myself the scowl of your spiritual eye upon the profanity of that scurrilous Ursa Major. Think of poetry, dear B. Think of poetry, and then think of Dr. Samuel Johnson. Think of all that is airy and fairy-like, and then of all that is hideous and unwieldy. Think of his huge bulk, the elephant, and then think of the Tempest, the Midsummer Night's Dream, Prospero, Oberon, and Titania. A poem, in my opinion, is opposed to a work of science by having, for its immediate object, pleasure, not truth. To romance, by having, for its object, an indefinite instead of a definite pleasure, being a poem only so far as this object is attained. Romance presenting perceptible images with definite, poetry with indefinite sensations, to which end music is an essential, since the comprehension of sweet sound is our most indefinite conception. Music, when combined with a pleasurable idea, is poetry. Music without the idea is simply music. The idea without the music is prose, from its very definitiveness. What was meant by the invective against him who had no music in his soul? To sum up this long rigmarole, I have, dear B, what you no doubt perceive for the metaphysical poets as poets, the most sovereign contempt. That they have followers proves nothing. No Indian prince has to his palace more followers than a thief to the gallows. End of section 43.
Section 44 of the Works of Edgar Allan Poe, Raven Edition, Volume 5. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information, or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. Recording by Brett Hirsch. Sonnet to Science by Edgar Allan Poe. Science, true daughter of old time thou art, who alterest all things with thy peering eyes, why preyest thou thus upon the poet's heart? Vulture, whose wings are dull realities, how should he love thee, or how deem thee wise, who wouldst not leave him in his wandering to seek for treasure in the jewelled skies, albeit he soared with an undaunted wing? Hast thou not dragged Diana from her car, and driven the Hamadryad from the wood, to seek a shelter in some happier star? Hast thou not torn the Naiad from her flood, the elfin from the green grass, and from me the summer dream beneath the tamarind tree? End of section 44.
Section 45 of the Works of Edgar Allan Poe, Raven Edition, Volume 5. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information, or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. Recording by Algy Pug. Aaraaf by Edgar Allan Poe. Part 1. Oh, nothing earthly save the ray, thrown back from flowers, of beauty's eye, as from those gardens where the day springs from the gems of Circassy. Oh, nothing earthly save the thrill of melody in woodland rill, or music of the passion-hearted, joy's voice so peacefully departed, that, like the murmur in the shell, its echo dwelleth and will dwell. With nothing of the dross of ours, yet all the beauty, all the flowers that list our love, and deck our bowers, adorn yon world afar, afar, the wandering star. 'Twas a sweet time for Nessarche, for there her world lay lolling on the golden air, near 4 bright suns, a temporary rest, a garden spot in desert of the blest. Away, away, mid seas of rays that roll Empyrean splendour o'er the unchained soul, the soul that scarce, the billows are so dense, can struggle to its destined eminence. To distant spheres, from time to time, she rode, and late to ours, the favoured one of God. But now, the ruler of an anchored realm, she throws aside the sceptre, leaves the helm, and amid incense and high spiritual hymns, laves in quadruple light her angel limbs. Now, happiest, loveliest in yon lovely earth, whence sprang the idea of beauty into birth, falling in wreaths through many a startled star, like woman's hair mid pearls, until afar it lit on hills Archaean, and there dwelt. She looked into infinity, and knelt. Rich clouds for canopies about her curled, fit emblems of the model of her world, seen but in beauty, not impeding sight of other beauty glittering through the night, a wreath that twined each starry form around, and all the opaled air in colour bound. All hurriedly she knelt upon a bed of flowers, of lilies such as rear the head on the fair Capo Ducato, and sprang so eagerly around, about to hang upon the flying footsteps of deep pride of her who loved a mortal, and so died. The Cephalica, budding with young bees, upreared its purple stem around her knees, and a gemmy flower of Trebizond misnamed inmate of highest stars, where erst it shamed all other loveliness. Its honeyed dew, the fabled nectar that the heathen knew, deliriously sweet, was dropped from heaven, and fell on gardens of the unforgiven in Trebizond, and on a sunny flower so like its own above, that to this hour it still remaineth torturing the bee with madness and unwonted reverie. In heaven, and all its environs, the leaf and blossom of the fairy plant, in grief disconsolate, linger. Grief that hangs her head, repenting follies that full long have fled, heaving her white breast to the balmy air like guilty beauty, chastened and more fair. Nyctanthus too, as sacred as the light, she fears to perfume, perfuming the night. And Clytia, pondering between many a sun, while pettish tears adown her petals run. And that aspiring flower that sprang on earth, and died, ere scarce exalted into birth, bursting its odorous heart in spirit to wing its way to heaven, from garden of a king. And Valor's Nerean lotus thither flown from struggling with the waters of the Rhone, and thy most lovely purple perfume, Zante, Isoladoro fior di Levante, and the Nelumbo bud that floats for ever with Indian Cupid down the holy river. Fair flowers and fairy, to whose care is given to bear the goddess song in odours up to heaven. Spirit, that dwellest where in the deep sky the terrible and fair in beauty vie, beyond the line of blue, the boundary of the star which turneth at the view of thy barrier and thy bar, of the barrier overgone by the comets who were cast from their pride and from their throne to be drudges till the last, to be carriers of fire, the red fire of their heart, with speed that may not tire, and with pain that shall not part. Who livest, that we know, in eternity, we feel, but the shadow of whose brow what spirit shall reveal? Though the beings whom thy Nasace, thy messenger hath known, have dreamed for thy infinity a model of their own, thy will is done, O God! The star hath ridden high through many a tempest, but she rode beneath thy burning eye, and here, in thought, to thee, in thought that can alone ascend thy empire, and so be a partner of thy throne, by winged fantasy, my embassy is given, till secrecy shall knowledge be in the environs of heaven. She ceased, and buried then her burning cheek, abashed, amid the lilies there, to seek a shelter from the fervour of his eye, for the stars trembled at the deity. She stirred not, breathed not, for a voice was there, how solemnly pervading the calm air, a sound of silence on the startled ear, which dreamy poets name the music of the sphere. Ours is a world of words, quiet we call silence, which is the merest word of all. Here nature speaks, and even ideal things flap shadowy sounds from visionary wings. But ah, not so, when thus in realms on high the eternal voice of God is passing by, and the red winds are withering in the sky. What though in worlds which sightless cycles run linked to a little system, and one sun, where all my love is folly, and the crowd still think my terrors but the thunder-cloud, the storm, the earthquake, and the ocean wrath? Ah, will they cross me in my angrier path? What though in worlds which own a single sun the sands of time grow dimmer as they run, yet thine is my resplendency, so given to bear my secrets through the upper heaven. Leave tenantless thy crystal home, and fly, with all thy train, athwart the moony sky, apart, like fireflies in Sicilian night, and wing to other worlds another light. Divulge the secrets of thy embassy to the proud orbs that twinkle, and so be to every heart a barrier and a ban, lest the stars totter in the guilt of man. Up rose the maiden in the yellow night, The single mooned eve, on earth we plight our faith to one love, and one moon adore. The birthplace of young beauty had no more. As sprang that yellow star from downy hours, up rose the maiden from her shrine of flowers, and bent o'er sheeny mountain and dim plain her way, but left not yet her Theresian reign. El Aaraaf, Part II. High on a mountain of enamelled head, such as the drowsy shepherd on his bed of giant pasturage, lying at his ease, raising his heavy eyelid, starts and sees, with many a muttered hope to be forgiven, what time the moon is quadrated in heaven, of rosy head that towering far away into the sunlight ether, caught the ray of sunken suns at eve, while the moon danced with the fair stranger light. Upreared upon such height arose a pile of gorgeous columns on the unburdened air, flashing from Parian marble that twin smile far down upon the wave that sparkled there, and nursled the young mountain in its lair. Of molten stars their pavement, such as fall through the ebon air, besilvering the pall of their own dissolution, while they die. Adorning then the dwellings of the sky. A dome, by linked light from heaven let down, sat gently upon these columns as a crown. A window of one circular diamond there looked out above into the purple air, and rays from God shot down that meteor chain, and hallowed all the beauty twice again. Save when, between the empyrean and that ring, some eager spirit flapped his dusky wing. But on the pillars seraph eyes have seen the dimness of this world, that greyish green that nature loves the best for beauty's grave, lurked in each cornice, round each architrave, and every sculptured cherub thereabout, that from his marble dwelling ventured out, seemed earthly in the shallow of his niche, Archaean statues in a world so rich. Friezes from Tadmor and Persepolis, from Baalbec and the stilly clear abyss of beautiful Gomorrah. Oh, the wave is now upon thee, but too late to save. Sound loves to revel near a summer night. Witness the murmur of the grey twilight that stole upon the ear in Aaraco, of many a wild stargazer long ago, that stealeth ever on the ear of him who, musing, gazeth on the distance dim, and sees the darkness coming as a cloud. Is not its form, its voice, most palpable and loud? But what is this? It cometh, and it brings a music with it. 'Tis the rush of wings. A pause, and then a sweeping, falling strain, and the Sace is in her halls again. From the wild energy of wanton haste her cheek was flushing, and her lips apart, and zone that clung around her gentle waist had burst beneath the heaving of her heart. Within the centre of that hall to breathe she paused and panted, Xanthi, all beneath, the fairy light that kissed her golden hair and longed to rest, yet could but sparkle there. Young flowers were whispering in melody to happy flowers that night, and tree to tree. Fountains were gushing music as they fell in many a starlit grove or moonlit dell. Yet silence came upon material things. Fair flowers, bright waterfalls, and angel wings, and sound alone that from the spirit sprang bore burden to the charm the maiden sang. 'Neath bluebell or streamer, or tufted wild spray that keeps from the dreamer the moonbeam away. Bright beings that ponder with half-closing eyes on the stars which your wonder hath drawn from the skies, till they glance through the shade and come down to your brow, like eyes of the maiden who calls on you now. Arise from your dreaming in violet bowers to duty beseeming these star-litten hours, and shake from your tresses encumbered with dew the breath of those kisses that cumber them too. Oh, how, without you, love, could angels be blest? Those kisses of true love that lulled ye to rest. Up, shake from your wing each hindering thing, the dew of the night, it would weigh down your flight, and true love caresses, oh, leave them apart, they are light on the tresses, but hang on the heart. Ligeia, Ligeia, my beautiful one, whose harshest idea will to melody run, oh, is it thy will on the breezes to toss? Or, capriciously still, like the lone albatross incumbent on night, as she on the air, to keep watch with delight on the harmony there? Ligeia, whatever thy image may be, no magic shall sever thy music from thee. Thou hast bound many eyes in a dreamy sleep, but the strains still arise which thy vigilance keep. The sound of the rain which leaps down to the flower, and dances again in the rhythm of the shower, the murmur that springs from the growing of grass, are the music of things, but are modelled, alas. Away then, my dearest, oh, hie thee away to springs that lie clearest beneath the moon-ray, to lone lake that smiles, in this dream of deep rest, at the many-star isles that enjewel its breast, where wild-flowers, creeping, have mingled their shade. On its margin is sleeping full many a maid. Some have left the cool glade, and have slept with the bee. Arouse them, my maiden, on moorland and lea. Go, breathe on their slumber, all softly in ear, the musical number they slumbered to hear. For what can awaken an angel so soon, whose sleep hath been taken beneath the cold moon, as the spell which no slumber of witchery can test, the rhythmical number which lulled him to rest? Spirits in wing, and angels to the view, 1,000 seraphs burst the empyrean through, young dreams, still hovering on their drowsy flight, seraphs in all but knowledge, the keen light that fell refracted through thy bounds afar. O death, from eye of God upon that star! Sweet was that error, sweeter still that death. Sweet was that error, even with us the breath of science dims the mirror of our joy. To them 'twere the simoon, and would destroy, for what to them availeth it to know that truth is falsehood, or that bliss is woe? Sweet was their death, with them to die was rife with the last ecstasy of satiate life. Beyond that death no immortality, but sleep that pondereth, and is not to be. And there, O may my weary spirit dwell, apart from heaven's eternity, and yet how far from hell! What guilty spirit, in what shrubbery dim, heard not the stirring summons of that hymn? But they fell, for heaven no grace imparts to those who hear not for their beating hearts. A maiden angel, and her seraph lover, oh, where, and ye may seek the wide skies over, was love, the blind, near sober duty known? Unguided love hath fallen, mid tears of perfect moan. He was a goodly spirit, he who fell, a wanderer by mossy, mantled well, a gazer on the lights that shine above, a dreamer in the moonbeam by his love. What wonder? For each star is eye-like there, and looks so sweetly down on beauty's hair, and they, and every mossy spring were holy to his love-haunted heart and melancholy. The night had found, to him a night of woe, upon a mountain crag young Angelo. Beetling it bends athwart the solemn sky, and scowls on starry worlds that down beneath it lie. So sat he with his love, his dark eye bent with eagle gaze along the firmament. Now turned it upon her, but ever then it trembled to one constant star again. Ianthe, dearest, see how dim that ray, how lovely 'tis to look so far away. She seemed not thus upon that autumn eve I left her gorgeous halls, nor mourned to leave. That eve, I should remember well, that sun-ray dropped in Lemnos with a spell On the arabesque carving of a gilded hall Wherein I sat, and on the draperied wall, And on my eyelids. Oh, the heavy light! How drowsily it weighed them into night! On flowers, before, and mist, and love they ran With Persian Sa'di in his Gulistan. But oh, that light! I slumbered, death the while Stole o'er my senses in that lovely isle So softly, that no single silken hair Awoke that slept, or knew that it was there. The last spot of earth's orb I trod upon Was a proud temple called the Parthenon. More beauty clung around her columned wall Than even thy glowing bosom beats withal. And when old Time my wing did disenthrall, Thence sprang I, as the eagle from his tower, And years I left behind me in an hour. What time upon her airy bounds I hung, One half the garden of her globe was flung, Unrolling as a chart unto my view, Tenantless cities of the desert too. Ianthe, beauty crowded on me then, And half I wished to be again of men. My Angelo, and why of them to be? A brighter dwelling place is here for thee, And greener fields than in yon world above, And women's loveliness, and passionate love. But list, Ianthe, when the air so soft failed, As my pennoned spirit leapt aloft, Perhaps my brain grew dizzy, but the world I left so late was into chaos hurled, Sprang from her station on the winds apart, And rolled, a flame, the fiery heaven athwart. Methought, my sweet one, then I ceased to soar, and fell, Not swiftly as I rose before, But with a downward tremulous motion Threw light brazen rays, this golden star unto. Nor long the measure of my falling hours, For neared of all stars was thine to ours. Dread star, that came, amid a night of mirth, A red Dedalion on the timid earth. We came, and to thy earth, but not to us Be given our Lady's bidding to discuss. We came, my love, around, above, below, Gay firefly of the night, we come and go, Nor ask a reason, save the angel nod She grants to us, as granted by her God. But Angelo, than thine grey time unfurled Never his fairy wing o'er fairier world. Dim was its little disk, and angel eyes Alone could see the phantom in the skies, When first Aaraaf knew her course to be Headlong thitherward o'er the starry sea. But when its glory swelled upon the sky, As glowing beauties bust beneath man's eye, We paused before the heritage of men, And thy star trembled, as doth beauty then. Thus in discourse the lovers whiled away The night that waned, and brought no day. They fell, for heaven to them no hope imparts, Who hear not for the beating of their hearts. End of section 45.
Section 46 of the works of Edgar Allan Poe, Raven Edition, Volume 5. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. Recording by Phil Schempf. Tamerlane by Edgar Allan Poe. Kind solace in a dying hour. Such, Father, is not now my theme. I will not madly deem that power Of earth may shrive me of the sin Unearthly pride hath revelled in. I have no time to dote or dream. You call it hope, that fire of fire. It is but agony of desire. If I can hope, O God, I can. Its fount is holier, more divine, and I would not call thee fool, old man, but such is not a gift of thine. Know thou the secret of a spirit, bowed from its wild pride into shame? O yearning heart, I did inherit thy withering portion with the fame, the searing glory which hath shone amid the jewels of my throne. Halo of hell! And with a pain not hell shall make me fear again. O craving heart, for the lost flowers and sunshine of my summer hours, the undying voice of that dead time, with its interminable chime, rings, in the spirit of a spell, upon thy emptiness a knell. I have not always been as now. The fevered diadem on my brow I claimed and won usurpingly. Hath not the same fierce heirdom given Rome to Caesar, this to me? The heritage of a kingly mind and proud spirit which hath striven triumphantly with humankind. On mountain soil I first drew life. The mists of Taglay have shed nightly their dews upon my head, and I believe the winged strife and tumult of the headlong air have nestled in my very hair. So late from heaven that dew, it fell, mid dreams of an unholy night, upon me, with the touch of hell, while the red flashing of the light from clouds that hung like banners o'er appeared to my half-closed eye the pageantry of monarchy. And the deep trumpet thunder's roar came hurriedly upon me, telling of human battle where my voice, my own voice, silly child, was swelling. Oh, how my spirit would rejoice and leap within me at the cry, the battle cry of victory. The rain came down upon my head unsheltered, and the heavy wind was giant-like. So thou, my mind, it was but man, I thought, who shed laurels upon me, and the rush, the torrent of the chilly air gurgled within my ear the crush of empires, with the captive's prayer, the hum of suitors, and the tone of flattery round the sovereign's throne. My passions, from that hapless hour, usurped a tyranny which men have deemed since I have reached to power. My innate nature be it so. But, Father, there lived one who then in my boyhood, when their fire burned with a still intenser glow, for passion must with youth expire, e'en then who knew this iron heart in woman's weakness had a part. I have no words, alas, to tell the loveliness of loving well, nor would I now attempt to trace the more than beauty of a face whose lineaments upon my mind are shadows on the unstable wind. Thus I remember having dwelt some page of early lore upon, with loitering eye, till I felt the letters, with their meaning, melt to fantasies, with none. Oh, she was worthy of all love, love as in infancy was mine. 'Twas such as angel minds above might envy, her young heart the shrine on which my every hope and thought were incense. Then a goodly gift, for they were childish and upright, pure, as her young example taught. Why did I leave it, and adrift trust to the fire within, for light? We grew in age, and loved together, roamed the forest and the wild, my breast her shield in wintry weather. And when the friendly sunshine smiled, she would mark the opening skies. I saw no heaven but in her eyes. Young love's first lesson is the heart. For mid that sunshine and those smiles, when from our little cares apart, and laughing at her girlish wiles, I'd throw me on her throbbing breast, and pour my spirit out in tears. There was no need to speak the rest, no need to quiet any fears of her, who asked no reason why, but turned on me her quiet eye. Yet more than worthy of the love my spirit struggled with, and strove, when on the mountain peak alone ambition lent it a new tone. I had no being but in thee, the world and all it did contain in the earth, the air, the sea, its joy, its little lot of pain that was new pleasure, the ideal, dim vanities of dreams by night, and dimmer nothings which were real, shadows, and a more shadowy light, parted upon their misty wings, and so confusedly became thine image, and a name, two separate yet most intimate things. I was ambitious. Have you known the passion, Father? You have not. A cottager, I marked a throne on half the world as all my own, and murmured at such lowly lot. But just like any other dream, upon the vapor of the dew my own had passed. Did not the beam of beauty, which did while it through the minute, the hour, the day, oppress my mind with double loveliness? We walked together on the crown of a high mountain, which looked down afar from its proud natural towers of rock and forest, on the hills, the dwindled hills, begirt with bowers and shouting with 1,000 rills. I spoke to her of power and pride, but mystically, in such guise that she might deem it naught beside the moment's converse. In her eyes I read, perhaps too carelessly, a mingled feeling with my own. The flush on her bright cheek to me seemed to become a queenly throne, too well that I should let it be light in the wilderness alone. I wrapped myself in grandeur then, and donned a visionary crown. Yet it was not that fantasy had thrown her mantle over me, but that, among the rabble, lion ambition is chained down, and crouches to a keeper's hand. Not so in deserts, where the grand, the wild, the terrible conspire with their own breath to fan his fire. Look round thee now on Samarcand. Is not she queen of earth, her pride above all cities? In her hand their destinies? In all besides of glory which the world hath known, stands she not nobly and alone? Falling, her veriest stepping stone shall form the pedestal of a throne. And who her sovereign? Timur, he whom the astonished people saw striding o'er empires haughtily, a diademed outlaw. O human love, thou spirit given, on earth of all we hope in heaven, which fall'st into the soul like rain upon the Siroc withered plain, and failing in thy power to bless, but leav'st the heart a wilderness. Idea, which bindest life around with music of so strange a sound, and beauty so wild a birth, farewell, for I have won the earth. When Hope, the eagle that towered, could see no cliff beyond him in the sky, his pinions were bent droopingly, and homeward turned his softened eye. 'Twas sunset, when the sun will part. There comes a sullenness of heart to him who still would look upon the glory of the summer sun. That soul will hate the evening mist, so often lovely, and will list to the sound of the coming darkness, known to those whose spirits hearken, as one who, in a dream of night, would fly, but cannot from a danger nigh. What though the moon, the white moon, shed all the splendor of her noon? Her smile is chilly, and her beam in that time of dreariness will seem, so like you gather in your breath, a portrait taken after death. And boyhood is a summer sun, whose waning is the dreariest one, for all we live to know is known, and all we seek to keep hath flown. Let life, then, as the day-flower, fall with the noonday beauty, which is all. I reached my home no more, for all had flown who made it so. I passed out its mossy door, and though my tread was soft and low, a voice came from the threshold stone of one whom I had earlier known. Oh, I defy thee, hell, to show on beds of fire that burn below a humbler heart, a deeper woe. Father, I firmly do believe. I know, for Death, who comes for me from regions of the blest afar, where there is nothing to deceive, hath left his iron gate ajar, and rays of truth you cannot see are flashing through eternity. I do believe that Eblis hath a snare in every human path. Else how, when in the holy grove I wandered of the idol Love, who daily scents his snowy wings with incense of burnt offerings from the most unpolluted things, whose pleasant bowers are yet so riven above with trellised rays from heaven, no mote may shun, no tiniest fly the lightning of his eagle eye. How was it that ambition crept, unseen, amid the revels there, till growing bold he laughed and leapt in the tangles of love's very hair? 1829. End of section 46.
Section 47 of the Works of Edgar Allan Poe, Raven Edition, Volume 5. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. Recording by Antonio Barroso. To Helen, by Edgar Allan Poe. Helen, thy beauty is to me like those Nicean barks of yore, that gently o'er a perfumed sea the weary, way-worn wanderer bore to his own native shore. On desperate seas long wont to roam, thy hyacinth hair, thy classic face, thy naiad airs have brought me home to the glory that was Greece and the grandeur that was Rome. Lo, in yon brilliant window niche, how statue-like I, me, thee stand, the agate lamp within thy hand. Ah, Psyche, from the regions which are Holy Land. End of section 47. Section 48 of the Works of Edgar Allan Poe, Raven Edition, Volume 5. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. Recording by Antonio Barroso. The Valley of Unrest, by Edgar Allan Poe. Once it smiled a silent dell, where the people did not dwell. They had gone unto the wars, trusting to the mild-eyed stars, nightly, from their azure towers, to keep watch above the flowers, in the midst of which all day the red sunlight lazily lay. Now each visitor shall confess the sad valley's restlessness. Nothing there is motionless, nothing save the airs that brood over the magic solitude. Ah, by no wind are stirred those trees that palpitate like the chill seas around the misty Hebrides. Ah, by no wind those clouds are driven that rustle through the unquiet heaven uneasily from morn till even, over the violets there that lie in myriad types of the human eye, over the lilies there that wave and weep above a nameless grave. They wave. From out their fragrant tops eternal dews come down in drops. They weep. From off their delicate stems perennial tears descend in gems. End of section 48. Section 49 of the Works of Edgar Allan Poe, Raven Edition, Volume 5. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. Recording by Antonio Barroso. Israfel, by Edgar Allan Poe. And the angel Israfel, whose heartstrings are a lute, and who has the sweetest voice of all God's creatures. Quran. In heaven a spirit doth dwell, whose heartstrings are a lute. None sing so wildly well as the angel Israfel, and the giddy stars, so legends tell, ceasing their hymns, attend the spell of his voice, all mute. Tottering above, in her highest noon, the enamoured moon blushes with love, while to listen the red levin, with the rapid Pleiads even, which were 7, pauses in heaven, and they say, the starry choir and all the listening things, that Israfeli's fire is owing to that lyre by which he sits and sings, the trembling living wire of those unusual strings. But the skies that angel trod, where deep thoughts are a duty, where love's a grown-up god, where the houri glances are imbued with all the beauty which we worship in a star. Therefore thou art not wrong, Israfeli, who despisest an unimpassioned song. To thee the laurels belong, best bard, because the wisest. Merrily live and long. The ecstasies above with thy burning measures suit, thy grief, thy joy, thy hate, thy love, with the fervour of thy lute. Well may the stars be mute. Yes, heaven is thine, but this is a world of sweets and sours. Our flowers are merely flowers, and the shadow of thy perfect bliss is the sunshine of ours. If I could dwell where Israfel hath dwelt, and he where I, he might not sing so wildly well a mortal melody, while a bolder note than this might swell from my lyre within the sky. End of section 49.
Section 50 of the works of Edgar Allan Poe, Raven Edition, Volume 5. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. Recording by Sean Daly. To Blank by Edgar Allan Poe. 1. The bowers whereat, in dreams, I see the wantonest singing birds are lips, and all thy melody of lip-begotten words. 2. Thine eyes, in heaven of heart enshrined, then desolately fall, O God, on my funeral mind like starlight on a pall. 3. Thy heart, I wake and sigh, and sleep to dream till day of truth that gold can never buy, of the trifles that it may. End of section 50. Section 51 of the works of Edgar Allan Poe, Raven Edition, Volume 5. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. Recording by Sean Daly. To Blank by Edgar Allan Poe. I heed not that my earthly lot hath little of earth in it, that years of love have been forgot in the hatred of a minute. I mourn not that the desolate are happier sweet than I, but that you sorrow for my fate, who am a passer-by. End of section 51.
Section 52 of the works of Edgar Allan Poe, Raven Edition, Volume 5. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. Recording by Florence Short. To the River Blank. Fair river, in thy bright clear flow of crystal wandering water, thou art an emblem of the glow of beauty, the unhidden heart, the playful maziness of art in old Alberto's daughter. But when within thy wave she looks, which glistens then and trembles, why then the prettiness of brooks her worshipper resembles. For in my heart, as in thy stream, her image deeply lies, his heart which trembles at the beam of her soul-searching eyes. End of section 52.
Section 53 of the works of Edgar Allan Poe, Raven Edition, Volume 5. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. Recording by MariaSim. Sung by Edgar Allan Poe. I saw thee on thy bridal day, when a burning blush came over thee. Thy happiness around thee lay, the world all love before thee, and in thine eye a kindling light, whatever it might be, was all on earth my aching sight of loveliness could see. That blush perhaps was made in shame, as such it well may pass, though its glow hath raised a fiercer flame in the breast of him, alas, who saw thee on that bridal day, when that deep blush would come over thee, though happiness around thee lay, the world of love before thee. End of section 53.
Section 54 of the works of Edgar Allan Poe, Raven Edition, Volume 5. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. Recording by Matt Zaldivar. Spirits of the Dead by Edgar Allan Poe. Thy soul shall find itself alone, mid dark thoughts of grey tombstone, not one of all the crowd to pry into thine hour of secrecy. Be silent in that solitude, which is not loneliness, for then the spirits of the dead who stood in life before thee are again in death around thee, and their will shall then overshadow thee. Be still. For night, though clear, shall frown, and the stars shall look not down from their high thrones in the heaven, with light like hope to mortals given, but their red orbs, without beam, to thy weariness shall seem as a burning and a fever which could cling to thee forever. Now our thoughts thou shalt not banish, now our visions ne'er to vanish, for thy spirit shall they pass no more like dewdrop from the grass. The breeze, the breath of God, is still, and the mist upon the hill, shadowy, shadowy yet unbroken, is a symbol and a token, how it hangs upon the trees, a mystery of mysteries. End of section 54.
Section 55 of the works of Edgar Allan Poe, Raven Edition, Volume 5. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. Recording by Larry Wilson. A Dream by Edgar Allan Poe. In visions of the dark night I have dreamed of joy departed, but a waking dream of life and light hath left me broken-hearted. Ah, what is not a dream by day to him whose eyes are cast on things around him with a ray turned back upon the past? That holy dream, while all the world were chiding, hath cheered me as a lovely beam, a lonely spirit guiding. What through that light, through storm and night, so trembled from afar? What could there be more purely bright in truth's day star? 1827. End of section 55. Section 56 of the works of Edgar Allan Poe, Raven Edition, Volume 5. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. Recording by Larry Wilson. Romance by Edgar Allan Poe. Romance, who loves to nod and sing with drowsy head and folded wing, among the green leaves as they shake far down within some shadowy lake, to me a painted paroquet hath been, a most familiar bird, taught me my alphabet to say, to lisp my very earliest word while in the wildwood I did lie, a child with a most knowing eye. Of late, eternal condor years so shake the very heaven on high with tumult as they thunder by, I have no time for idle cares through gazing on the unquiet sky. And when an hour with calmer wings its down upon thy spirit flings, that little time with lyre and rhyme to while away forbidden things, my heart would feel to be a crime, unless it trembled with the strings. 1829. End of section 56.
Section 57 of the works of Edgar Allan Poe, Raven Edition, Volume 5. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. Recording by Phil Schempf. Fairyland by Edgar Allan Poe. Dim vales and shadowy floods, and cloudy-looking woods whose forms we can't discover for the tears that drip all over. Huge moons there wax and wane, again, 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 every moment of the night, forever changing places, and they put out the starlight with the breath from their pale faces. About 12 by the moon-dial, one more filmy than the rest, a kind which upon trial they have found to be the best, comes down, still down, and down, with its centre on the crown of a mountain's eminence, while its wide circumference in easy drapery falls, over hamlets, over halls, wherever they may be, o'er the strange woods, o'er the sea, over the spirits on the wing, over every drowsy thing, and buries them up quite in a labyrinth of light. And then how deep, oh deep is the passion of their sleep. In the morning they arise, and their moony covering is soaring in the skies, with the tempests as they toss, like almost anything, or a yellow albatross. They use that moon no more for the same end as before, videlicet attent, which I think extravagant, its atomies, however, into a shower dissever, of which those butterflies of earth who seek the skies, and so come down again, never contented things, have brought a specimen upon their quivering wings. 1831. End of section 57.
Section 58 of the works of Edgar Allan Poe, Raven Edition, Volume 5. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. The Lake Blank, to Blank, by Edgar Allan Poe. In spring of youth it was my lot to haunt of the wide earth a spot to which I could not love the less. So lovely was the loneliness of a wild lake, with black rock bound, and the tall pines that towered around. But when the night had thrown her pall upon that spot, as upon all, and the mystic wind went by murmuring in melody, then, then I would awake to the terror of the lone lake. Yet that terror was not fright, but a tremulous delight, a feeling not the jewelled mind could teach or bribe me to define, nor love, although the love were thine. Death was in that poisonous wave, and in its gulf a fitting grave for him who thence could solace bring to his lonely imagining, whose solitary soul could make an Eden of that dim lake. 1827. End of section 58. Recording by Richie Franklin, Salt Lake City, Utah.
Section 59 of the works of Edgar Allan Poe, Raven Edition, Volume 5. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. Recording by Matt Zaldivar. Evening Star by Edgar Allan Poe. 'Twas noontide of summer, and midtime of night, and stars in their orbits shone pale through the light of the brighter cold moon. Mid planets her slaves, herself in the heavens, her beam on the waves. I gazed a while on her cold smile, too cold for me. There passed, as a shroud, a fleecy cloud, and I turned away to thee. Proud evening star, in thy glory afar, and dearer thy beam shall be. For joy to my heart is the proud part thou bearest in heaven at night, and more I admire thy distant fire than that colder, lowly light. End of section 59.
Section 60 of the works of Edgar Allan Poe, Raven Edition, Volume 5. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. Recording by Larry Wilson. The Happiest Day by Edgar Allan Poe. The happiest day, the happiest hour my seared and blighted heart hath known, the highest hope of pride and power I feel hath flown. Of power, said I, yes, such I ween, but they have vanished long, alas. The visions of my youth have been, but let them pass. And pride, what have I now with thee? Another brow may even inherit the venom thou hast poured on me. Be still, my spirit. The happiest day, the happiest hour mine eyes shall see, have ever seen, the brightest glance of pride and power I feel have been. But were that hope of pride and power now offered with the pain, even then I felt that brightest hour I would not live again. For on its wing was dark alloy, and as it fluttered, fell an essence powerful to destroy a soul that knew it well. 1827. End of section 60.
Section 61 of the works of Edgar Allan Poe, Raven Edition, Volume 5. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. Imitation by Edgar Allan Poe. A dark, unfathomed tide of interminable pride, a mystery and a dream should my early life seem. I say that dream was fraught with a wild and waking thought of beings that have been, which my spirit hath not seen had I let them pass me by with a dreaming eye. Let none of earth inherit that vision on my spirit, whose thoughts I would control as a spell upon my soul. For that bright hope at last and that light time have passed, and my worldly rest hath gone with a sigh as it passed on. I care not though it perish, with a thought I then did cherish. 1827. End of section 61. Recording by Richie Franklin, Salt Lake City, Utah. Section 62 of the works of Edgar Allan Poe, Raven Edition, Volume 5. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. Hymn to Aristogeiton and Harmodius by Edgar Allan Poe. Translation from the Greek. 1. Wreathed in myrtle, my sword I'll conceal, like those champions devoted and brave, when they plunged in the tyrant their steel, and to Athens deliverance gave. 2. Beloved heroes, your deathless souls roam in the joy-breathing isles of the blest, where the mighty of old have their home, where Achilles and Diomed rest. 3. In fresh myrtle my blade I'll entwine, like Harmodius the gallant and good, when he made at the tutelar shrine a libation of tyranny's blood. 4. Ye deliverers of Athens from shame, ye avengers of liberty's wrongs, endless ages shall cherish your fame, embalmed in their echoing songs. 1827. End of section 62. Recording by Richie Franklin, Salt Lake City, Utah.
Section 63 of the works of Edgar Allan Poe, Raven Edition, Volume 5. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. Recording by Phil Schempf. Dreams by Edgar Allan Poe. Oh, that my young life were a lasting dream, my spirit not awakening till the beam of an eternity should bring the morrow. Yes, though that long dream were of hopeless sorrow. 'Twere better than the dull reality of waking life to him whose heart shall be, and hath been ever, on the chilly earth, a chaos of deep passion from his birth. But should it be, that dream eternally continuing, as dreams have been to me in my young boyhood, should it thus be given, 'twere folly still to hope for higher heaven. For I have revelled when the sun was bright in the summer sky, in dreamy fields of light, and left unheedingly my very heart in climes of mine imagining, apart from mine own home, with beings that have been of mine own thought. What more could I have seen? 'Twas once, and only once, and the wild hour from my remembrance shall not pass. Some power or spell had bound me. 'Twas the chilly wind came o'er me in the night, and left behind its image on my spirit. Or the moon shone on my slumbers in her lofty noon too coldly, or the stars. Howe'er it was, that dream was as the night wind. Let it pass. I have been happy, though but in a dream. I have been happy, and I love the theme. Dreams, in their vivid colouring of life, as in that fleeting shadowy misty strife of semblance with reality which brings to the delirious eye more lovely things of paradise and love, and all our own, than young hope in its sunniest hour hath known. End of section 63.
Section 64 of the Works of Edgar Allan Poe, Raven Edition, Volume 5. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. Recording by Sean Daly. In Youth I Have Known One, by Edgar Allan Poe. How often we forget all time when lone, admiring nature's universal throne, her woods, her wilds, her mountains, the intense reply of hers to our intelligence. 1. In youth I have known one with whom the earth in secret communing held, is he with it, in daylight, and in beauty from his birth, whose fervid flickering torch of life was lit from the sun and stars, whence he had drawn forth a passionate light such for his spirit was fit, and yet that spirit knew, not in the hour of its own fervour, what had o'er it power. 2. Perhaps it may be that my mind is wrought to a fever by the moonbeam that hangs o'er, but I will half believe that wild light fraught with more of sovereignty than ancient lore hath ever told. Or is it of a thought the unembodied essence, and no more that with a quickening spell doth o'er us pass as dew of the night time, or the summer grass? 3. Doth o'er us pass when as the expanding eye to the loved object, so the tear to the lid will start, which lately slept in apathy? And yet it need not be, that object hid from us in life, but common which doth lie each hour before us, but then only bid with a strange sound, as of a harp string broken, to awake us. 'Tis a symbol and a token. 4. Of what another world shall be, and given in beauty by our God, to those alone who otherwise would fall from life and heaven, drawn by their heart's passion, and that tone, that high tone of the spirit which hath striven, though not with faith, with godliness, whose throne with desperate energy it hath beaten down, wearing its own deep feeling as a crown. End of section 64. Section 65 of the Works of Edgar Allan Poe, Raven Edition, Volume 5. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. Recording by Sean Daly. A Paean by Edgar Allan Poe. How shall the burial rite be read, the solemn song be sung, the requiem for the loveliest dead that ever died so young? Her friends are gazing on her, and on her gaudy bier, and weep, oh, to dishonor dead beauty with a tear. They loved her for her wealth, and they hated her for her pride, but she grew in feeble health, and they love her that she died. They tell me, while they speak of her costly broidered pall, that my voice is growing weak, that I should not sing at all, or that my tone should be tuned to such solemn song, so mournfully, that the dead may feel no wrong. But she is gone above, with young hope at her side, and I am drunk with love of the dead who is my bride. Of the dead who lies all perfumed there, with the death upon her eyes, and the life upon her hair. Thus on the coffin loud and long I strike, the murmur sent through the grey chambers to my song shall be the accompaniment. Thou diedst in thy life's June, but thou didst not die too fair, thou didst not die too soon, nor with too common air. For more than fiends on earth, thy life and love are riven, to join the untainted mirth of more than thrones in heaven. Therefore to thee this night I will no requiem raise, but waft thee on thy flight with a paean of old days. End of section 65.
Section 66 of Works of Edgar Allan Poe, Raven Edition, Volume 5. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. Recording by Anastasiia Solokha. Alone by Edgar Allan Poe. From childhood's hour I have not been as others were. I have not seen as others saw. I could not bring my passions from a common spring. From the same source I have not taken my sorrow. I could not awaken my heart to joy at the same tone. And oh, I laughed alone. Then, in my childhood, in the dawn of the most stormy life, was drawn from every depth of good and ill the mystery which binds me still. From the torrent or the fountain, from the red cliff of the mountain, from the sun that round me rode in its autumn tint of gold, from the lightning in the sky as it passed me flying by, from the thunder and the storm and the cloud that took the form, when the rest of the heaven was blue, of a demon in my view. This poem is no longer considered doubtful as it was in 1903. Liberty has been taken to replace the book version with an earlier, perhaps more original manuscript version. End of section 66.
Section 67 of the Works of Edgar Allan Poe, Raven Edition, Volume 5. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. Recording by Blazely Dragon. To Isidore by Edgar Allan Poe. Beneath the vine-clad eaves, whose shadows fall before thy lowly cottage door, under the lilac's tremulous leaves, within thy snowy clasped hands, the purple flowers it bore. Last eve in dreams I saw thee stand, like queenly nymphs from fairyland, enchantress of the flowery wand, most beauteous Isidore. And when I bade the dream upon thy spirit flee, thy violet eyes to me, upturned, did overflowing seem with the deep untold delight of love's serenity. Thy classic brow, like lilies white and pale as the imperial night, upon her throne, with stars bedight, enthralled my soul to thee. Ah! Ever I behold thy dreamy passionate eyes, blue as the languid skies, hung with the sunset's fringe of gold. Now strangely clear thine image grows, and olden memories are startled from their long repose, like shadows on the silent snows, when suddenly the night wind blows where quiet moonlight lies. like music heard in dreams, like strains of harps unknown, of birds forever flown, audible as the voice of streams that murmur in some leafy dell. I hear thy gentlest tone, and silence cometh with her spell, like that which on my tongue doth dwell, when tremulous in dreams I tell my love to thee alone. In every valley heard, floating from tree to tree, less beautiful to me, the music of the radiant bird, than artless accents such as thine, whose echoes never flee. Ah, how for thy sweet voice I pine, for uttered in thy tones benign, enchantress, this rude name of mine doth seem a melody.
End of section 67. To Isidore. Recording by Blazely Dragon.
Section 68 of the works of Edgar Allan Poe, Raven Edition, Volume 5. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. Recording by Julie Mansius. The Village Street by Edgar Allan Poe. In these rapid, restless shadows once I walked at eventide, when a gentle, silent maiden walked in beauty at my side. She alone there walked beside me, all in beauty, like a bride. Pallidly the moon was shining on the dewy meadows nigh, on the silvery, silent rivers, on the mountains far and high, on the ocean's starlit waters where the winds a-weary die. Slowly, silently, we wandered from the open cottage door, underneath the elm's long branches to the pavement bending o'er, underneath the mossy willow and the dying sycamore. With the myriad stars in beauty all bedight, the heavens were seen. Radiant hopes were bright around me, like the light of stars serene, like the mellow midnight splendor of the night's irradiate queen. Audibly the elm leaves whispered peaceful, pleasant melodies, like the distant murmured music of unquiet, lovely seas, while the winds were hushed in slumber in the fragrant flowers and trees. Wondrous and unwonted beauty still adorning all did seem, while I told my love in fables, 'neath the willows by the stream. Would the heart have kept unspoken love that was its rarest dream? Instantly away we wandered in the shadowy twilight tide, she the silent, scornful maiden walking calmly at my side, with a step serene and stately, all in beauty, all in pride. Vacantly I walked beside her, on the earth mine eyes were cast. Swift and keen there came unto me bitter memories of the past, on me, like the rain in autumn, on the dead leaves, cold and fast. Underneath the elms we parted, by the lowly cottage door. One brief word alone was uttered, never on our lips before, and away I walked forlornly, broken-hearted evermore. Slowly, silently I loitered, homeward in the night, alone. Sudden anguish bound my spirit, that my youth had never known, wild unrest, like that which cometh when the night's first dream hath flown. Now to me the elm leaves whisper mad, discordant melodies, and keen melodies like shadows haunt the moaning willow trees, and the sycamores with laughter mock me in the nightly breeze. Sad and pale the autumn moonlight through the sighing foliage streams, and each morning midnight shadow of my sorrow seems. Strive, O heart, forget thine idol, and O soul, forget thy dreams. End of section 68.
Section 69 of the works of Edgar Allan Poe, Raven Edition, Volume 5. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. The Forest Reverie by Edgar Allan Poe. 'Tis said that when the hands of men tamed this primeval wood, and hoary trees with groans of woe, like warriors by an unknown foe, were in their strength subdued, the virgin earth gave instant birth to springs that ne'er did flow, that in the sun did rivulets run, and all around rare flowers did blow. The wild rose pale perfumed the gale, and the queenly lily adown the dale, whom the sun and the dew and the winds did woo, with the gourd and the grape luxuriant grew. So, when in tears the love of years is wasted like the snow, and the fine fibrils of its life by the rude wrong of instant strife are broken at a blow, within the heart do springs upstart, of which it doth now know, and strange, sweet dreams, like silent streams that from new fountains overflow, with the earlier tide of rivers glide deep in the heart whose hope has died, quenching the fires its ashes hide, its ashes, whence will spring and grow sweet flowers ere long, the rare and radiant flowers of song. Notes. Of the many verses from time to time ascribed to the pen of Edgar Poe, and not including among his known writings the lines entitled Alone, have the chief claim to our notice. Facsimile copies of this piece had been in possession of the present editor some time previous to its publication in Scribner's Magazine for September 1875, but as proofs of the authorship claimed for it were not forthcoming, he refrained from publishing it as requested. The desired proofs have not yet been adduced, and there is, at present, nothing but internal evidence to guide us. Alone is stated to have been written by Poe in the album of A Baltimore Lady, Mrs. Balderstone, on March 17, 1829, and the facsimile given in Scribner's is alleged to be of his handwriting. If the calligraphy be Poe's, it is different in all essential respects from all the many specimens known to us, and strongly resembles that of the writer of the heading and dating of the manuscript, both of which the contributor of the poem acknowledges to have been recently added. The lines, however, if not by Poe, are the most successful imitation of his early mannerisms yet made public, and, in the opinion of one well qualified to speak, are not unworthy of the whole of the percentage claimed for them. While Edgar Poe was editor of the Broadway Journal, some lines to Isidore appeared therein, and, like several of his known pieces, bore no signature. They were at once ascribed to Poe, and in order to satisfy questioners, an editorial paragraph subsequently appeared saying that they were by A. Ide, Jr. Two previous poems had appeared in the Broadway Journal over the signature of A. M. Ide, and whoever wrote them was also the author of the lines to Isidore. In order, doubtless, to give a show of variety, Poe was then publishing some of his known works in his journal over nom de plume, and as no other writings whatever can be traced to any person bearing the name of A. M. Ide, it is not impossible that the poems now republished in this collection may be by the author of The Raven. Having been published without his usual elaborate revision, Poe may have wished to hide his hasty work under an assumed name. The three pieces are included in the present collection, so the reader can judge for himself what pretensions they possess to be by the author of The Raven. End of section 69. Recording by Richie Franklin, Salt Lake City, Utah. End of the works of Edgar Allan Poe, Raven Edition, Volume 5, by Edgar Allan Poe.